Hello students, how are you? Today we will be dealing with Article 14 of the Constitution of India, which deals with right to equality. What do you understand by the term right to equality? Right to equality is given under Article 14 of the Constitution of India. Under Article 14, right to equality is defined. But before going to this right, we must know what are the fundamental rights. Fundamental rights are given in Part 3rd of the Constitution of India. They are given in the Part 3rd of the Constitution of India, and it is the very big part of the Constitution of India. It's a very important part and very big as far as other parts are concerned. Very large part. Now, these fundamental rights are guaranteed and protected by the Constitution. These fundamental rights are given in the Constitution of India, and Constitution of India is the basic or fundamental law of India. The Constitution of India is the basic or the fundamental law of India, or we can say that the Constitution of India is the mother of all the laws of India. The thing is that the most essential right, which is for the development of the all-round personality of the citizens, is known as the fundamental right. And these are the fundamental rights which are given to the citizen of India from the Constitution of India, and they are most essential for the all-round development of the individuals. Originally, when the Constitution was framed, there were total 7 fundamental rights. Now, what were those fundamental rights? Those were, first, right to equality. It was given under Article 14 to Article 18 of the Constitution of India. Second was right to freedom. It was given under Article 19 to Article 22 of the Constitution of India. The third right is right against exploitation. It was given under Article 23 and 24 of the Constitution of India. And the fourth right is right to freedom of religion. Right to freedom of religion. It was given under Article 25 and 26, 27 and 28. These 4 articles contain the right to freedom of religion. Then the next fundamental right is the 5th one, which is known as cultural and educational right. Cultural and educational right. It is given under Article 29 and 30 of the Constitution of India. And the 6th right was the right to property. Very important. Right to property. It was given under Article 31 of the Constitution of India. And the 7th right was the right to constitutional remedies. It was given under Article 32 of the Constitution of India, which are known as writs. There are 5 writs. A person can go to the High Court or Supreme Court, and High Court or Supreme Court can issue 5 writs or even more than that for the enforcement of all the fundamental rights which I have discussed. The thing is that this right to property under Article 31 is no more a fundamental right now. This right to property, that is the 6th fundamental right, which was there in the Constitution when the Constitution was framed. But this right to property, very important, please listen. This right to property was deleted. It was deleted from the list by the 44th Constitutional Amendment, 1978. Now this right to property is just a legal right under Article 300 capital A of the Constitution of India and Part 12 of the Constitution of India. So only now there are only 6 fundamental rights excluding right to property. Now what are those fundamental rights? I again tell you: right to equality, right to freedom, right against exploitation, cultural and educational rights, and right of constitutional remedies. These are the 6 fundamental rights. Now here what we will be dealing with is the right to equality. before going to the right to equality, I must tell you that fundamental rights are basically available against the arbitrary action of the state. One can file various writs in the high courts and the Supreme Court to enforce their fundamental rights. Hence, fundamental rights are justiciable. What do you mean by justiciable? Justiciable means if the state violates the fundamental right of any citizen of India, the citizen of India can go or approach the Supreme Court and High Court and file a writ or any other remedy in the Supreme Court and High Court, and the Supreme Court and High Court, after watching his case, after reading his case, the Supreme Court and High Court can issue directions to the state so that the state may not violate the fundamental rights of the citizen of India, which are enumerated in the part 3rd of the Constitution of India, which I have already discussed with you. So these fundamental rights are guarded and granted by the Supreme Court and High Courts. But one can directly go to Supreme Court also. A person need not to go to High Court first for the enforcement of the fundamental rights, even before approaching High Court. Basically, the rule is that first he should go to the High Court, and if his petition is dismissed, then he can go to the Supreme Court in the form of appeal against the judgment of the High Court. But as far as fundamental rights are concerned, he can directly go to the Supreme Court also. Okay, fundamental rights are not sacrosanct or permanent. This is very important. They are very important, but they are not permanent as such. The Parliament can curtail. It is very important. The Parliament can curtail or repeal them, but only through a Constitutional Amendment Act under Article 368. So under Article 368 of the Constitution of India, the Parliament can amend or change the fundamental rights, but not by an ordinary act, only by Constitutional Amendment Act, and Parliament can only do so. Not any other state legislature can do it. The state legislatures don't have any power to change any of the provisions of the Constitution. But as far as Parliament is concerned, Parliament can change any of the provisions of the Constitution, including the fundamental rights. But this can be done without affecting the basic structure of the Constitution of India, which I have already discussed with you in the last lecture, what is known as basic structure of the Constitution of India. In Keshavananda Bharati versus State of Kerala, it was held by the Supreme Court. 13 judge bench was there in Keshavananda Bharati, and it was held by the Supreme Court that fundamental rights can be changed, but subject to the basic structure of the Constitution. Basic structure cannot be changed. It will remain as it is. And similarly, in Minerva Mills versus Union of India, the same thing was repeated, that basic structure cannot be changed. Now, fundamental rights can be suspended during national emergency. Under article, there are various 3 articles. 352 article is the national emergency. So, under national emergency, the fundamental rights can be suspended except Article 20 and 21 of the Constitution of India. Article 19, that is, there are 6 freedoms given to us. Article 19 can be automatically suspended during the national emergency, but Article 20 and 21 cannot be automatically suspended during the national emergency. Article 20 and 21 can be suspended only through the special presidential proclamation. They cannot be automatically suspended. But Article 19, that is 6 freedoms, can be automatically suspended whenever there is a declaration of emergency, and that declaration of emergency should be on the grounds of war or external aggression only, but not on the ground of armed rebellion. Basically, there are 3 grounds of national emergency. They are emergency on the basis of war, second national emergency on the ground of external aggression, and third is national emergency on the ground of armed rebellion. But as far as Article 19 is concerned, there are 6 freedoms given to us. They can be automatically suspended if the emergency is declared on the grounds of war or external aggression, not on the ground of armed rebellion. This is very important. Fundamental rights can be restricted where martial law or military rule is imposed in the area. So whenever there is an army rule in a particular area of the India, in that area, if there is army rule or martial law, the fundamental rights can be suspended by the parliament or the government of India. Fundamental rights are available to the citizen against the state. Just a minute. Fundamental rights are available to the citizen against the state, but in certain circumstances also the fundamental right can be available against the private citizens of India. Now, definition of state. Now, what is state? If we see, state means government and parliament of India. This is very important. Article 12. Article 12 defines state. Article 12 defines state. What is state? State, very important definition. You must understand this. State means first, state means government and parliament of India. State means government. Now, fundamental rights are available against the state. Fundamental rights are available to the citizen against the state. Now, what is state? State is defined under Article 12 of the Constitution of India. It says state means government and parliament of India. Government is the executive wing of the union government, and this is the legislature. So both executive of the union and the legislature of the union both are included in the definition of the state. Second thing which comes under the definition of state is government and legislature. Government and legislature of various states like Punjab and Haryana and Rajasthan and Karnataka. So government is the executive of a particular state and legislature is obviously the legislative wing. So government and parliament of India is included in the word state. Government and legislature of every state. There are 30 states in India. Third is all local authorities in the state. What are the local authorities? For example, municipalities, panchayats, district boards, improvement trusts. All these authorities are local authorities. Then the fourth is all other authorities. All other authorities come under the definition of state. Under all other authorities come the statutory authorities or non-statutory authorities. For example, LIC, Life Insurance Corporation of India, comes under other authorities. ONGC, Oil and Natural Gas Corporation of India, comes under other authorities. SAIL, all these authorities, basically in those authorities in which the government share is more than 50%. Those authorities in which the government of India or government of the state have a share which is more than 50%. It comes under other authorities. So this is the definition of state. Government and Parliament of India plus government and legislature of the union, various states, plus all other local authorities and all other authorities. So this is the definition of states. And under Article 13, this was given under Article 12. Under Article 13, very important, I have already discussed with you Article 13 in the basic structure doctrine in the last video. Under Article 13, it is said that all laws that are inconsistent with or in derogation of the fundamental rights, they shall be void. So it means if the parliament or the state legislature makes any law which is inconsistent with the given fundamental rights in the part 3rd of the Constitution of India, then that law can be declared null and void by the Supreme Court or the High Court because it is inconsistent with the fundamental rights of the Constitution of India which are given in part 3rd of the Constitution. So they can be declared unconstitutional and invalid. These laws can be declared unconstitutional and invalid on the ground of the contravention of the fundamental rights. So basically here we have to do Article 14. This was the basic introduction. Now I will be telling you about Article 14 of the Constitution of India. Article 14 of the Constitution of India. Article 14 says equality before law and equal protection of laws. Article 14 says equality before law and equal protection of laws. Very important article. It is one of the first article of the Constitution of India as far as fundamental rights are concerned, but it is the most important article. Besides Article 21, equality before law and equal protection of laws. So it means absence of special privileges in favor of any person. Parliament of India does not make any law which is for any privileged section, or it gives a special advantage or favor to a particular section of the citizens. Every citizen is governed under one law. Second meaning of right to equality is equal subjection. Equal subjection of all the persons in India to the ordinary law of India. That is ordinary law of land administered by the ordinary law courts. Third meaning of right to equality is no person, whether he is rich or poor, high or low, is above law. No person is above law. Fourth meaning is equality of treatment under equal circumstances. Everybody in India is treated equally under equal circumstances. That means if every person, or if a person which, though if for example there are 4 or 5 persons, they are situated in equal circumstances, they will be treated equally. But if they are not situated in equal circumstances, or the circumstances vary, then they cannot be treated equally. For the treatment to be given equal, the most important precondition is that the persons should be situated in equal circumstances. If they are not situated in equal circumstances, then they are basically unequal. And giving equality to unequals is also very bad. Giving equality to unequals is also not giving proper justice. So justice demands that equality should be given to persons who are situated in equal circumstances. There should be intelligible differentia. The Parliament or the Union Government, before applying this article, before making any policy, if the Government of India makes any policy and wants to differentiate one group of persons with other group of persons, then it should be with regard to the intelligible differentia. That is, one group of persons are situated in a particular circumstance and the other group of persons are situated in other different circumstances, and both the circumstances are not equal. They do not match. So this group of persons can be treated equally. The persons included in this group of persons, A group of persons, they can be treated equally, and the persons situated in the B group can be treated equally, but a person of B group cannot be treated equally with a person of A group, because a person of A group has a different set of circumstances which are different from the circumstances of the person situated in the B group. Is it clear? This is very important. But if there are 2 or 3 persons situated in the A group and we are differentiating between them, then there is inequality. They should be treated equally. But a person given in the group A cannot be treated equally with the person situated in B group, because both these groups are in a different set of circumstances. This is very important. The thing is, similar application of same laws to all persons are important if they are similarly situated. So right to equality also means that there should be a similar application of laws. There should be a similar application of laws to all persons who are similarly situated. And there should be equality of treatment under equal circumstances, and no person, whether rich or poor, high or low, should be above law. Then the next meaning of right to equality is the state can differentiate between equals and unequals, as I have already told you, on the basis of the reasonable classification based on intelligible differentia. Article 14 does not apply to two groups of people who are, for example, A group and B group. So Article 14, that is right to equality, does not apply on two groups of people who are not similarly situated and who are not under similar circumstances. So these two groups are in different circumstances. They are not similarly situated. A group and B group, they cannot claim right to equality. Okay. Then equality before law is an element of rule of law. Rule of law includes right to equality. Very important. Right to equality and rule of law are interrelated. Right to equality and rule of law are interrelated. Rule of law includes right to equality. Right to equality is an element of rule of law. Rule of law was a theory which was propounded by A.V. Dicey. He was a British jurist. It means, rule of law means absence of arbitrary power. There should be no arbitrary power in any country, any democratic country. There should not be any arbitrary power. No man can be punished except for the breach of law. If the law wants to punish any person, it should be only on the basis of the breach of law and not any other consideration. Second meaning of rule of law is equality before law, which we are already discussing. So equality before law, Article 14 is the element of rule of law. So equality before law is the element or a species of rule of law. So rule of law includes equality before law, and equality before law means equal subjection of all citizens to ordinary law of the law. And ordinary law of the land is our Constitution of India. So both these points are applicable to Indian system. Supreme Court in a certain case held that rule of law as embodied in Article 14 is a basic feature of the Constitution of India. Hence, rule of law or right to equality cannot be destroyed even by an amendment. So even through a constitutional amendment, right to equality, Article 14 cannot be abrogated. Very important. You know, fundamental rights can be changed through the constitutional amendment. Parliament can do so. It has the right to do so. But basic structure, basic features cannot be changed. And Article 14 is the basic feature. It was given basic feature. Article 14 is the basic feature of the Constitution of India. It cannot be abrogated. It cannot be diluted. It cannot be deleted. This was held in S.P. Sampath Kumar 1987. That rule of law is the basic structure of the Constitution of India, and rule of law includes right to equality also. In I.R. Kohilo case 2007, it was also held that rule of law is the basic feature of the Constitution of India. In Indra Shami case 1992, it was held that rule of law is the basic feature of the Constitution of India. Now, what are the exceptions to the right to equality? There are certain exceptions to the right to equality. Very important, note down. First is the President or the Governor of the state. President of India and Governor of the state, they are little bit above the ordinary citizens. Right to equality, Article 14 does not apply on them. President or the Governor are not answerable to any court for the exercise and performance of the powers and duties of their office. This is given under Article 361 of the Constitution of India. No criminal proceedings, very important. No criminal proceedings shall be instituted or continued against the President or the Governor in any court during his term of office. So, whenever the President or the Governor is continuing in his office, no criminal proceeding can be initiated against them. Second, no summons or warrants for arrest or imprisonment of the President or the Governor shall be issued from any court during his term of office. So whenever the President or the Governor is sitting and he is continuing in his term of office, no court can issue any summon or warrant against him for his imprisonment or arrest. Third, no civil proceedings can be initiated against the President or the Governor during his term of office in by the any court in respect of any act done by him or by him, whether before or after he entered his office. So if any he has done any act which is a civil wrong, and the other person want to file a civil suit, he cannot file a civil suit while the president or the governor is sitting in his office. He can file until the expiry of 2 months next after the notice has been delivered to him. So first the court has to issue the person has to issue a notice to him. After issuing a notice, there should be a gap of 2 months. After the gap of 2 months, the civil proceedings can be initiated against the president or the governor. But the civil proceedings should be preceded by a 2 months notice at least. But as far as criminal proceedings are concerned, there is no need of any notice or anything. No criminal proceedings can be initiated at all. But as far as civil proceedings are concerned, at least 2 months notice has to be given to the president or the governor. So by reading these points, we can understand that the governor or the president are little bit above the normal citizens of India, and they are basically, these are the exceptions given in the Constitution of India. These are the exceptions to the right to equality. So any other citizen cannot say that the governor or the president should not be given these special privileges, because these special privileges are given by the Constitution itself. Okay. Now then one more exception is MP, Member of Parliament. No MP shall be liable to any proceedings, any court, in respect of anything said or vote given by him in the Parliament or any committee thereof, under Article 105. Under Article 105 of the Constitution of India, it is said that if a Member of Parliament, that is MP, says anything in the Parliament House, or he votes or abstains from voting, whatever he has said, he cannot be questioned for that in any court. He cannot be questioned. Any court cannot take any cognizance of the fact that an MP has said something in the Constitution of India. Whatever an MP says in the Parliament of India, whatever the MP says, it is totally privileged, and it is governed by the rules and regulations of the concerned Parliament House. It is the Speaker who can take action against that MP, but no court can take cognizance of that matter, because an MP has total freedom of speech in a Parliament House. Similarly, an MLA, a member of Legislative Assembly of a particular state, can say anything what he wants to say in a particular state legislature, house, and it is the House Committee or the rules and regulations of the particular house. The speaker of the house can take action against that MLA, but no court or any court can take cognizance of this matter, because an MP or an MLA is totally given a freedom of speech in a particular house. You see, then foreign sovereigns, foreign rulers, foreign sovereigns who come to India, they are basically above the normal citizens of India. Foreign ambassadors, foreign diplomats, they totally enjoy immunity from civil and criminal proceedings. So foreign diplomats, foreign ambassadors, foreign sovereigns, they totally enjoy immunity from the civil and criminal proceedings in the court of India. But the thing is that they should not do anything which should be violative of the law of India, but basically they are totally free from the criminal and civil proceedings of the Indian courts. And the third is the UNO and its officials. They are also privileged and they have the diplomatic immunity. So these were the certain exceptions. As far as case laws are concerned, under Article 14, these are the certain case laws which are very important for your judiciary exams. Very important. The first case law which is very important is David John Hopkins. David Hopkins versus Union of India. This is 1997. David Hopkins versus Union of India. In this case, it was held foreigners do not have a fundamental right to obtain Indian citizenship. A foreigner does not have any fundamental right to obtain the Indian citizenship. This is given in David Hopkins versus Union of India. Second is Manohar. Second case is Manohar. Manohar versus State of Maharashtra. This is AIR 2013. Manohar versus State of Maharashtra, AIR 2013. In this case, it was held that rule of Audi Altrum Partem, very important rule. Audi, AUDI, Audi Altrum Partem. Rule of Audi Altrum Partem, that is hearing the both the parties. You see, if a case comes before a court, obviously there must be two parties. For example, there is a civil case. In civil case, there are two parties. The person who files the case is the plaintiff, and the person against whom the case is filed is known as the defendant. So the judge, it is the duty of the judge to listen to both the parties. It is the duty of the judge to hear both the parties. Every party should be given due time, and every party's advocate should be given proper time, and he should be heard properly by the court. And after hearing both the parties, there should be a reasoned decision by the court. This is known as natural justice or Audi Altrum Partem, which is the basic ingredient of Article 14, right to equality. Because if any party is not heard by the judge, basically it is against, or it is his right to equality is being violated by the court. So it is the duty of the court to hear both the parties. After hearing both the parties, a reasoned judgment should be given. This is known as Audi Altrum Partem, which is known as natural justice, is also part of right to equality. The third case, very important case, is MP oil extraction. MP oil extraction versus State of MP. MP oil extraction versus State of MP. This is the case of 1997 Supreme Court cases. So in MP oil extraction versus MP, it was held that discrimination in favor of persons residing in backward areas is permissible. So if any person or group of persons are residing in a backward area, they can be favorably, certain conditions or certain policy can be made by the government of that state in favor of those persons. The general persons which are not residing in that area, they cannot claim that basically it is the violation of right to equality given to them. No, because the persons in whose favor the government is making a policy or a rule, basically it is because those persons are residing in a area which is totally backward. So they must be given certain privileges. It doesn't mean that the general people who are not residing in the backward area, they must be saying that their right to equality is being violated, because the persons residing in the backward area they are situated in a different group, and the persons who are residing in urban areas, they are forming a different group. I have already told you there must be reasonable classification before denying right to equality. Here there is basically reasonable classification because the two group of persons are not situated in a similar circumstances. So this is known as this is basically intelligible differentia, and right to equality here can be violated by the constitution or by the government of India. The third is Uttar Pradesh Sugar, UP Uttar Pradesh Sugar Corporation Limited. UP, my writing is little bit not audible, or you cannot see my writing very important. It's not very important, but Uttar Pradesh Sugar Corporation Limited versus Sant Raj Singh, very important, versus Sant Raj Singh. Uttar Pradesh Sugar Corporation Limited versus Sant Raj Singh. This is AIR 2006 Supreme Court cases. Uttar Pradesh Sugar Corporation versus Sant Raj Singh, AIR 2006. And this also, it was held that the doctrine of equal pay for equal work, very important, equal pay for equal work, the doctrine of equal pay for equal work applies only to those who are equally placed in all respects. That is, if they are having equal posts, if they are having equal designations, then only those persons who are having equal posts, they are situated in equal designations in a government job, they can claim right to equality. The government cannot prefer one person at par with the other person. If there are two persons situated in a similar circumstances, they both of those persons must be promoted subject to seniority. So these were the cases. Then the next case is Onkar Lal Bajaj. Very important case. Very important case as far as your judiciary is concerned. Onkar Lal Bajaj. Onkar Lal Bajaj versus Union of India 2003 case. Very important for judiciary exam. Onkar Lal Bajaj versus Union of India 2003. In this case, it was held that equal treatment to unequals. Equal treatment to unequals is nothing but inequality. I have already told you. If the two group of persons who are not similarly situated, and then giving equality to both of them, it's basically inequality. So basically both are unequals. Why unequal? Because they are situated in different circumstances. If the government is denying equality to those persons who are similarly situated in similar circumstances, then basically we can say that Article 14 is being violated by the government. And a person can go to the Supreme Court and declare that policy or law null and void. But if the government makes a policy or law which is different, if the government makes two laws or two policies or frames two rules, which is basically one rule or law is for a group of persons, A group of persons, and other rule is for the B group of persons. Why? Why two rules? Generally there should be one rule for every person. But why two rules? Why two regulations? Because it is for those two group of persons who are totally different. They are totally different in different circumstances. They are not similarly situated. So it is an intelligible differentia. That's why two rules apply for two set of persons who are not similarly situated. Basically, it is not a denial of right to equality. No person of any group can go to the court and say that my Article 14 is being violated, because no Article 14 can be violated if it is in this way. Second is very important case. P. Mohan Sundaram. P. Mohan Sundaram versus President. P. Mohan Sundaram versus President. This is 2013 case. Just a minute. P. Mohan Sundaram versus President 2013. In this case, it was held that a person cannot be allowed to raise the plea of violation of principles of natural justice who refuses to appear in spite of notice for appearance. If the person who is a party in a civil case or a criminal case and he is not coming to the court on every date, the court is sending him summons and warrants, even then he is not coming to the court for the hearing, then he cannot say that the court is denying his right to equality if the court passes judgment against him. Why? Because he himself is not coming to the court. So it basically he cannot say that Article 14 is being violated, or there is basically violation of RD alteram partem or natural justice, because RD alteram partem says both parties should be heard before a decision can be given by the court. But here the party himself or herself is not coming to the court. Okay. Second is very important case as far as judiciary is concerned. Ayab, Ayaabukhan. Ayabu Khan versus State of Maharashtra. Ayabu Khan versus State of Maharashtra 2012 the case hai. Ayabu Khan versus State of Maharashtra, AIR 2012. Ayabu Khan versus State of Maharashtra, AIR 2012. In this case, it was held that the right to cross-examination in a civil case or the criminal case. You know there is the right of cross-examination. The right of cross-examination is an integral part of the principle of natural justice, and if any party's advocate is denied right to cross-examination by the court, then basically it is the violative of natural justice, it is violative of RD alteram partem, and which is basically violation of a right to equality. Very important. Ayabu Khan versus State of Maharashtra 2012 as far as judiciary is concerned. Then one more case. as far as Article 14 is concerned, it is Delhi Transport Corporation versus Mazdoor Congress. This is the case of 1991. Supreme Court, AIR 1991. Delhi Transport Corporation versus Mazdoor Congress, AIR 1991. This is also case of Article 14. And it says that rule for termination of service of permanent employee without reason is void. If the government is terminating the services of a permanent employee, not temporary employee, permanent employee, then that rule is totally void and it is violative of Article 14 of the Constitution of India. So basically, guys, these were the important cases for your right to equality. So this was the lecture of right to equality. I have finished this lecture. I hope you have liked the lecture. In the next lecture, we will be dealing with the other fundamental rights. Thank you very much. Sat Sri Akal.